What is up, stream? So, welcome to Design with Kyle. This is hopefully going to be a somewhat more regular thing. I today happens to be like a late night Friday session, as you can tell with the choice of beverage. So, this evening we're going to be sort of embarking on a new project. Hold on just a second. All right, there we go. So yeah, tonight we're going to be starting on a new project. This is my first like real um, full stream from the studio. Um, I I've sort of got this brainworm a little bit that I want to start on a new packaging project. So for those who are sort of new or don't follow me, I am a graphic designer. I work in packaging, production design, logo design. I'm a freelancer, but I work primarily for one client where I do a lot of production design and the sort of work that like is sort of procedural, right? Just sort of like taking art, putting it into place, sizing it correctly, making sure the dimensions are correct, and then setting it all up to be professionally printed or engraved or whatever. So a lot of my work on a day-to-day basis as a full-time designer is mostly procedural, right? It's mostly like stuff that I'm just sort of like pointing and clicking. There's not a lot of like creative juices flowing in that. I find it extremely rewarding. The team that I work with is great. But I want to sort of have an outlet where I can do a little bit more creative work outside of my day job. So um, this is sort of an effort to do that. This will be part one of probably many parts because as of right now, I have nothing on this project except for what I want to do with it and the name of the company. So let me sort of like walk you through a little bit of what we're working on. All right, it's going to be a moment. I am this being my first stream, I'm trying to like find things. So got it. All right, so I try to start everywhere with a mood board, right? So well, I guess I should give that to you full size. So I try to start everywhere with a mood board. So you are looking at, let me zoom out here. You are looking at everything that I have on this client. Essentially, I have the client, what I'm working on, and the date, and a bunch of empty boxes. So I know this is not really the like designed use for Adobe XD, but I like to use XD as a mood boarding program, something that I can work on to just sort of like assemble a bunch of pictures and put stuff together that sort of uh, don't mean to. You got the surge, absolutely, sir. This is I don't think I've had these before. Um, yeah, this is my accelerated drinking plan on the basic White Claws. So anyway, I know this is not really what XD is designed for, but I use XD as a mood boarding program to kind of assemble a bunch of stuff. I'll sort of like jump into Pinterest or Dribbble or Behance and start sort of pulling things that just immediately vibe with me. It's hard to explain, right? When I start a project, there's just sort of like an initial like cloud of ideas and just like a general feeling that sort of that I sort of have. And as I'm just sort of like scrolling through Pinterest or Behance or Dribbble, and we'll do this here in just a couple of minutes, I could just sort of like grab stuff that vibes with that overall feeling and just start throwing it onto this mood board. And then because it's such a broad, because it's such a large dock and there's so many spaces for like putting stuff in, um, that starts to sort of direct the project, right? So by the end of that, I have enough to look at to where I've sort of put stuff in the top of the funnel, and what's coming out at the bottom is more actionable. It's more stuff that I can take and start twisting and molding and play-dohing into my own stuff. So a lot of the way that I work is sort of influenced by Austin Kleon. If you're familiar with his work, he wrote Show Your Work, Still Like an Artist. Is a fairly like prolific writer and designer, and a great follow on Instagram as well. He essentially says that like there really is no original art, right? There is no original design or original art. Everything is sort of an iteration of an iteration of an iteration of an iteration, right? Because we've been designing stuff for hundreds, thousands of years in one shape or form, and so that stuff just sort of piles onto itself. And with technology and our sort of ways of thinking changing, those things evolve. So a lot of how I sort of approach things is looking at what's successful in the space, sort of finding like a vibe, a feeling, and then going with that based on just how I feel about it. So, all right. So first things first, let's hop into some moonboarding resources. I'm just gonna go ahead and like launch Pinterest and Dribbble and Behance on the desktop here. And we'll go to Safari. Now I'm sort of realizing that you can't see that. And Safari. But I'm in Behance. Look at that. All right. Okay, so a ton of what we're working on is just sort of, like I said, a feeling. So I usually start with Pinterest. And this brand is called Clean Freak. So I'm gonna put that in the chat. Clean Freak bar soap packaging design. So everybody's caught up. Yeah, so it's basically just bar soap. This was sort of inspired by if you've seen any of the sort of like man bar soap packaging designs. There are, let me see. There's a really popular brand sort of out that does this, and I cannot think of their name. I'm a customer. I'm just gonna Google man soap. It's not Duke Cannon, though I am a customer. It's Squatch. So Dr. Squatch, yeah. So Dr. Squatch sort of does a good job at like rebranding bar soap as a more masculine product, I guess. They're sort of like leaning into this like Ron Swanson like man vibe, and so there is pop up. There is a Jesus. There is a lot of like space there, I think, for bringing different textures, different illustration styles, other sort of like packaging um, inspirations into this. So, that being said, I'm going to copy this and move it into my XD board. So when I bring this into XD, I can just right click and paste appearance. And XD already knows, oh, you want to put it in the square? No problem. And if I need to scale it down to sort of fit, I totally can. So this is my first block. It sort of is like the illustration of what sparked this whole idea. And it gives me an idea of what the actual product is going to look like, because this is spoiler alert, not real, and I'm just sort of like practicing. This gives me an idea of like what the product looks like and what the end customer is going to experience when they open it and use it and all that sort of thing. So that gives me a good starting point. So let's go back to Safari. And now that we've sort of got like that established, I can start this was a good thing to start searching. I could sort of start looking and seeing like what I want. So I like sort of color usage in this. And a lot of this stuff, like I'm not even going to flip back to XD for you guys to see because um, I'm just working very quickly. Like a lot of this is just like how I feel about it. Does it give me the right vibe? Is there, like I like this type work. So does it give me the right vibe? Does it kind of elicit the same style that I sort of have in my mind? And a lot of that evolves as I'm working, to be honest. So a lot of that's sort of like, okay, I have a very vague idea of what I want to put together, but in reality, there's I'm sort of I'm trying to think of like a proper metaphor for this. I'm sort of like throwing the coal into the fire, right? Because I have the fire sort of going. Like I know that I want this to be clean freak. It's going to be based on like the old concept of like circus freaks and like like the bearded lady and like the dog man and like that sort of thing. It's going to be very illustration heavy and texture rich, and sort of like old worldy feeling almost. Like not really old worldy feeling, but sort of like the Greatest Showman sort of vibes, like that traditional like Barnum and Bailey, but with a little bit of fade to it, with a little bit of vintageness, with a little bit of like broken down over time to it. So I know that's the overall vibe that I sort of want to go for, or at least that's the best way that I can put it into words right now. And so looking through all of this, that's sort of the fire, right? Like that's sort of the fire in the what do you call it, in like the train car, right? And what I'm doing now through Pinterest and Behance and Dribbble and just sort of like looking at a bunch of different other output and other ideas and stuff like that is throwing more coal in there to sort of stoke the flame. So like I like this. This sort of has like a very old school handmade vibe that I want to include. So stick that one in the board. Like I said, just working fast, just seeing what sort of like stands out to me. I love the rock. Look at that. It looks like a rock. That's fire. I also like the idea of doing something sort of sustainable. Like this cold processed soap. And actually, this is the kind of soap that I'm talking about. Like sort of rough edges. I'm thinking that the packaging itself is going to have like each. I'm thinking I'm going to do 3, maybe 4 scents or flavors or whatever you say for soap. And each one will be in a tight-fitting square box, cardboard box. And the front of the package will be just like a wide open mouth. Basically, a wide open mouth or wide open eyes or some sort of cutout in the front of the package so that so that you can see the product through the packaging. So there'll be some sort of like cutout or isolation of the actual product itself. So I'm interested in like these rougher textures and even like something like this where it looks like handmade soap, right? Like it's sort of got like a weird texture and a bunch of these little like particles in it and stuff like that. So like I do want to play on that. And if I find like a certain one that sort of leans into the whole like vibe, the whole like circus freak kind of like, and can be an extension of the illustration, then that's even better. I like this for the texture and sort of like the natural boxes with black on them, just very, very like simple. So we'll put that one on the board. Pattern work here is great. I like this even better. And when I'm doing this, I'm sort of like playing the algorithm. You know what I mean? Like I'm sort of like clicking on stuff that I know is going to push me in the right direction. So like this right here is almost like from the fonts on down, like this is sort of pushing it in the right direction. This is sort of like, so I'll show you in XD, I actually have these larger boxes, right? These larger boxes that are just sort of sprinkled throughout. And anytime I feel something that just really like sort of vibes or like hits the right spot for me as far as like the overall feel of the project and stuff like that, and is really going to direct like the feel, I put it in one of these big boxes. So like this here, I know it's pixelated at this size, but there's like a lot of high contrast, old like wood types, some border work that would kind of like play off of those old like hand painted signage that would advertise for like circuses or whatever. To be honest with you, now that I sort of spoke this into existence earlier by talking about The Greatest Showman. But there is like oh yeah, hold up, let me turn my music. All right, y'all tell me if it's too loud. Anyway, there's like a scene in The Greatest Showman where they're like slapping up signs all around town, and they're sort of like hand painted and wood types and like that sort of thing. And like back then, because of just limitations of technology, there was a limit on the amount of like color pop and brightness they could get out of those, especially with wood types, because you're literally you're literally pressing the ink into thick ass paper, and so there was only so much like vibrancy and color that you could get out of those, and I really do want to recreate that here, but maybe just use the technology that we have on hand to turn the brightness up just like 10%, right? So that when it's sitting on a shelf next to something like the Duke Cannon Supply stuff or the Dr. Squatch stuff, it sort of pops. Like it sort of immediately comes out to you, and it's got like a weird vibe. It's a little like hipstery, craft beer, kind of like that sort of thing. So, like I said, as I'm going, I'm just sort of speaking this stuff into existence, right? I feel like looking at the board, I've gotten a lot of the like black and white stuff that I want out of the way. Or not black and white, but like black on brown, black on craft paper, cardboard, that sort of thing. So I want to look into some color and just see what works out there. Like I like this. This is an old Williams-Sonoma, or it's not old, 2012, 2013, but it's sort of like a retro feel, right? And again, like this is that thing where like 100 years ago, this sign would have been made pretty much like this. It would have looked a little jankier. It would have been a little less like pretty, but it would have pretty much been made like this, except they wouldn't have been able to get as much color separation and vibrancy and just like overall pop. And of course, like the photograph, just like the overlay of the photograph and that stuff like that, this would have been a painting or a recreation. But they wouldn't have been able to get the same sort of like pop and contrast because of the materials they're using and the technology they were limited to at the time. But I do like the font here. New Apple update forcing me to copy the text in the picture versus like copying the picture. I do like the vibe of the font and sort of the overall layout, so I'm going to stick this in a box on the board and we can look at it later. We have... Okay. And just sort of moving through, like, this has that sort of like old school, like painterly, like sign painter design. But then, like I said, when you're feeding the algorithm, like you don't want to go too wild ass. So like this is going to push you in the direction of like Art Deco vibes, and because of that font, and I just don't want to like pursue that. You know, like I like this patterning. Like I could see you sort of imploring, employing, using, using this patterning and this type work and sort of like this overall feeling on the back of the box. To sort of do like a brand call out, like some sort of like quippy little saying or something like that. So I'll add that to the board. Now, I've done a bad thing and I fed the algorithm too much because this was a very like big leap from what I was looking at. So now it's just giving me lettering as related. I sort of want to go back and look at have like half lettering, half packaging, or a third lettering, a third packaging, and a third like logo stuff on my related. See, now I could see doing like a type like this. You know, doing something like, I even like this color setup, so I'm gonna copy this entirely and just sort of like throw it on the board. Because I think it's like, it's good overall. It's good contrast, it's good color. The colors in it will probably have to be muted a little bit because that gradient is sort of like gives it a modern feeling. That gradient sort of like makes it feel too modern, and like the level of exact detail is sort of too modern. But for now, it's fine. Tons of type in here. Tons of type. So I'm actually going to leave this window open because now that I'm like looking at that type, like look how many typefaces there are in here to choose from when it comes time to do type, and all of this sort of fits. Like I love that right there. Like all of this sort of could fit the vibe that I'm looking for. Look at that Baraka. Ooh, man. That is fire. Can I look at that? Like, can I type Clean Freak into here and test it? I can. So, not all caps. That won't work. Because the way the font's designed. But, like, look at that. That is fire, 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 fire. Can I zoom in on that? That looks really, really good. You would obviously have to do some adjustment because, like, the kerning is all messed up and the shapes of the... But that looks really, really, really good. Yeah, so I'm going to keep this font page. In fact, I think I can copy it and I'll just throw it on the board. I'll just throw it on the board. Let me go back to XD so you guys can see. There we go. So we've already got sort of a board coming together. I mean, there's a lot of like, there's a lot of space here, or there's a lot of sort of space to iterate here. So I'm gonna move these over, tighten this up, and then I get in here and just put fonts, and make this like actually legible. And on this sort of thing, I'll just like stick this here because you're just gonna grab the URL later anyway, so it's not that big a deal. And then I'll just like blow up the yep, and alright, cool. So I got some fonts to reference now, which is very helpful. So let's go back to Safari. Oh, hang on. Just gonna go. Oh. I'm gonna turn my music back on because I was sort of jamming earlier, but it was loud. Alright, vibes. Cool. Alright, so let's get back to sourcing some things. So now I feel like I have a good grasp on. Wait. Now I feel like I have a good grasp on sort of like the feel of it, right? The texture, ooh, shout out to Hoodspa. Look at them. Sort of a feel for like the text, the texture, the packaging, sort of like the feeling. Like, man, I love that right there. Obviously, this is packaging for peppermint bark, but that is like a good corollary, I guess, like a good similar product in how it like feels. Yeah, there you go. I mean, look at that. And this is actually all Heritage Typeco. Yeah, I actually have the Heritage Typeco pack, and I recognize those fonts because I've used them in the past. So like I said, now I feel like I have a good feel for things like type. I've sort of tapped color, just barely, and we've done like a little bit of texture work and a little bit of inspirational packaging. I sort of want to move in the direction of the actual illustrations themselves. So I'm literally just going to go in here and put like carnival illustration. And just like see. Yeah, see, that's a little too new. Let's do like a vintage. So sort of a couple of choices here. I've noticed just sort of like scrolling as I've been just preliminarily thinking about this that there's a couple of ways to go with this. How it would have been created back then is this, which is sort of like a painterly, like literally like hand painted and like warm and sort of like oil paints and shit like that. This sort of like dancing fairy belle of the ball. But the modern take on that is to sort of knock these out and make them more of a minimal, like you get what the character is. There's more of a focus on color and sort of clean lines and sharp edges. Like this little parrot, these little parrot guys are more geometric. But when you start moving into this world, like you want to avoid going too far and becoming clip art, right? Because like to me, this is clip art. But this right here has a very cool feel. And this is actually, wow, this is actually pretty close to like the texture and the overall feel. So this is acrylic on canvas. This is actually pretty close to the overall feel and just like vibe that I'm going for. I mean, that's actually very informative. So I'm going to put that in a big, giant tile on the board as like an indication that like, hey, we're moving in the right direction if we're doing stuff like this. Let me switch over to the board so you can see what I mean. So like, look, that, I mean, that has the color. It's got the like lowered contrast that you would get by doing an acrylic on canvas. It's not as vibrant as something that you can produce in print. But it's also got like the wide mouth, the sort of like hand illustrated feel. This is still a little like children's illustration for the feel that I'm going for, but it's 70% of the way there. You know, I just thought about the fact that maybe I'm not allowed to drink alcohol on stream. I'm gonna, but I thought about the fact that maybe you are allowed or not allowed to do that. Oh well. Alright, so that was like a really good place to start, man. Like that was excellent. I googled one thing, I got a result that I really liked. I'm psyched. So let's put Safari back on. You guys can kind of see what I'm going through. Right, so there's like Bat Boy or whatever. So let's see what else is in here. Death's Minstrel. Okay, yeah, we're in the vibe now. We are in the vibe now. Okay. And everything that I'm seeing here is going to be like more elaborated, more sort of like blown up and exaggerated, but I love like the framing of this and just the overall feel. This is all acrylic on canvas. So now that I know that, now that I know that everything that I'm liking is acrylic on canvas, shout out to whoever posted all these. Now that I know that this look is achieved through acrylic on canvas, I need to keep that in mind as I go, because that'll sort of come into like our last step. After all this stuff is made vector and flat and colored and all that sort of thing, I can go in, I can take all this stuff into Photoshop and sort of texturize it. Okay, yeah, see, we're getting there. We're getting there. So originally I had this vibe for like, I sort of gravitate in my design language and sort of like what inspires me to like old exploitation films, like 60s and 70s, sort of like black people and women and just people of color in general and women being depicted on screen, and of course exploited based on their identity and like who they were and things like that in those movies, but also finally getting like breaking through and getting into the movies and doing like professional work and mainstream art. So it's both like it's evocative because it's provoking, like it sort of elicits a reaction, but it's also just something that's been like burned into our brains as like an old school American way of like advertising. I love this. Like, not to get like too weird or whatever, but like the framing is nice. There's sort of like a translucent quality to like several of the elements in here because of the way that it's painted. Like there's like these little call outs that are very cool. I mean, I could see you doing like Seer of Souls instead of Seer of Souls here. You can do something like, you know, lavender and chamomile or something, right? Like you can call out the ingredients and sort of do like a marketing call out with those. I love this a ton. So I'm gonna grab this and we'll drop this on the board. There's so many of these that I like that it looks like they're all from the same collection. The colors are just so like, they're a vibe. The colors are a vibe. I like this for the color and texture because like this has that sort of black or that sort of exploitation film vibe and the poster work, but it's got like a lot of good contrast. I could see if you had like a primarily green ingredient in your soap, you could use like the sort of the color tones and stuff like that from this. So because of the shape of our product, so I have like just a generic layout in XD that I use for mood boarding, But because of the shape of our product, all these like horizontal layouts aren't really working. So I'm gonna rescale all these boxes to be more vertical so that I can see more of the inspiration shots. Like I can see way more of that if the pieces are vertical. So just like extend this one up. I'll take these two out and just like go bigger here. And like pretty quickly, because I've sort of like caught onto a vibe and really sparked like what I'm looking for here, pretty quickly the board starts to shrink because I don't need that much more. There is such a thing as like over mood boarding, I think. Like there's such a thing as like collecting so much inspiration and so many other pictures and stuff like that, that you end up like poisoning the well in a way and sort of like burning those images into your mind. And then you're just recreating, right? There's a fine line between collecting all of this and then just like if I made my soap, it would just be in addition to this collection of things that I like, these acrylic on canvas things that we found. Versus like, okay, I've seen those now. Let's look at them for a while, then put them away. I like this. It's getting a little like dark and weird, but I like the colors. And it's a good like skinny thing to put in here because I don't need to see the whole thing. And even if I think, the good thing about XD is all this stuff's movable. Everything's scalable and movable. So even if I think I need a little more space, I can move all this stuff down right here. And I can do a couple of more vertical boxes. I actually don't know if you... Yeah, you're still on XD. And then I'll put another like thin box right here and we can do something texture-wise here. Alright, so now that I'm at this point, I think I have a really good feel for what the overall like brand and in my mind packaging is going to look like. You know, like I've got some inspiration as far as type. Type here, lots of type. Materials, some more type, some color inspiration like this. Sort of where it all started and what sparked it. I've got that whole page of fonts linked here that I can jump off to once I'm ready to start actually doing type. Again, more typography. This is sort of like that jumping off point from where like we're trying to realistically recreate the way that these packages would have been made, and then just like turning them up a little bit. And that's what sort of sparked that thought. So that's just a good little reminder. A lot of mood boarding is just sort of like leaving out breadcrumbs for yourself to sort of refer back to while you're working. So if I sort of start to lose the plot a little bit as I'm designing and actually doing the work, what I can do is go back to this and say like, oh, okay, I'll pull back, or I'll sort of go back in that direction. A little bit of color influence. This sort of started the whole game, and then this gives me an idea of the frame that I'd like to sort of use, a little bit of those call-outs, the translucency that I liked, and overall like texture. A little bit more like these eyes have a glow to them that I like, and sort of a texture in the snakes that's nice. I like that this is sort of speaking like a carnival barker would, you know, like get your tickets to the head of Medusa. Her gaze turns men into stone. You know, like somebody out there sort of carnival barking. And I think you could write a lot of the marketing copy for this sort of in that voice. So grab that. So now we're down to 4 boxes that I gotta fill. That's easy. We're rolling. So what we'll do is finish rolling through mood boarding. We will get this filled out, and then I'll take a quick break, 10 minutes or so, and then we will start jumping into writing a very quick brief, just right next to this in XD, and then we'll actually make the template for the packaging and what the end template will look like, and sort of get everything like die-lined and guided out, and sort of our roadmap for what we're going to be working on, our canvas, if you will. And then we will move to, and then we'll sort of save there, call it a night because that's probably going to be about an hour from now. Save it from there, call it a night, and then part two will be actually starting on sketches, working through the really painful, like wringing out of all the ideas and what's bad, what's good, what sucks, what doesn't, and how to sort of translate that into at least a sketch, which is sort of a blueprint for what you're going to do digitally, and then we'll bring that into Illustrator and sort of go from there. So, all right, let's wrap up on mood boarding. I will throw Safari back up here so that you can see sort of like, now, because we're down to 3 boxes, okay? I'm going to be much more choosy about what I pick out here. And I'm just going to go to Behance and put on Carnival. Okay, so I'm not particularly vibing with anything here, but that's okay. It will come along. A lot of this is just too modern for the... Now this I like. Not for the content, because obviously this is not what I'm going for. I mean, this is dope. I mean, unbelievably dope. Shout out to Pedro Correa. This is dope work. I mean, just unbelievably good. Holy cow. Wow. Unreal. But I like the chaos in it. So I could see sort of a vibe where, like, we don't have a big giant monster head here, but we do have a circus tent. And this is sort of the bottom half of the packaging, or the bottom half of the back of the packaging, or the side of the packaging. So, like, there is a lot of... Man, that is amazing shit. Alright, so Behance doesn't let you copy images, so you have to take a manual screenshot with Mac. One of them things. Sure, yeah, holy cow. That's just incredibly dope work. There's also this danger of going into too, like, juvenile of a look, which I don't. Ooh. This is not bad, but it's a little, like... plain, I guess is the word, or maybe, like... It's too vectory. This I like. This sort of like sparked something in my mind. What is his name? Clopel? Clopair? Clopin. Alright. This dude's vibe. In fact, like, this whole movie's overall vibe is sort of what we're going for. Hunchback of Notre Dame is goated, my friends. I'm gonna copy some of these. These are amazing. Wow. They're a little sketchy for the look I'm going for, but wow. They are just dope for the color values and just like the overall vibe. I can't pass that up. That's gotta go on the board. Alright, so I've got one more block to fill, so we're gonna do that on Dribbble. I find that Dribbble, I don't know, I haven't been using Dribbble for mood boarding very much. Just simply because, like, I don't... look at that. That's nice. simply because, yeah, I haven't been using Dribble for mood boarding because it's not as broad. It's not as broad. A lot of the work is um, very specific because, like, designers are on here trying to get work, right? This is strictly just designers on here showing their portfolios trying to get work. And so the work is very specific. I like that. Now, even though so this is where like knowing what to search and playing the algorithm is important, but also knowing, also sort of like keeping an eye on the correct path it is important as well. I'm searching carnival stuff, but really these are circus freaks, and there is like a tiny deviation between those two genres. And if I lean too hard into the carnival thing, I feel like that's gonna take over the overall vibe of the project. And so I have to sort of find something that is a happy medium. Like this is carnival, or this is carnival. This is carnival. This one right here. This is carnival. But this could be circus, right? Like there's a difference. Look at that. That looks good. That cloud. A little too modern for what I'm going for here, but looks good. So back to like Dribble as a mood boarding source. A lot of work on Dribble, believe it or not. Oh man, that looks good, dude. That texture is very nice. Still too modern, but a lot of work on Dribble is too modern for the sort of work that I do. Like it's too, I want to say polished because that makes it sound like my work is shit. Um, but it's too fresh and new. Know what I mean? Oh, look at that. Carnival Games. Kristen Boydston. She's got a whole series of illustrations, looks like, that are carnival based. Yeah, pitch till you win prize every time. So just sort of like minimalist, right? Yeah. Not the vibe I'm going for. Very good, but not the vibe I'm going for. It's amazing what you can get out of one color. Alright, I'm taking this for the typography, and I'll just find a place to stick it. Actually, done. Done. We're going to call that done. That filled out my mood board. So let me show you what we got. I wonder if I can preview this. I sure can. Look at that. You guys see this preview? No. Hold on just a second. I'm going to give you the preview. Is this window called preview? Okay. No, you can't really. Let me zoom in here so you can see what we're looking at. Okay, so this is our mood board. Like I said, some of it's sort of janky, some of it isn't like exactly what we're trying to accomplish. That doesn't really matter at this point. Oh, we missed a spot. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. I can include one more thing. Dope. I was afraid that I had filled it with that typography piece, and that wasn't exactly what I wanted to end on. Cool and wood type, but not quite what I'm looking for. That's a naked chick. So I think we're sort of getting out of the vibe here, right? Like I don't really see anything that's just like, ooh. Alright, hold on now. That's pretty fresh. That right there is pretty damn fresh. It's to Carnival and not Circus. So on Behance, let's search Circus. Another naked chick. It's naked chicks all over Behance. Another one. Oh my god, they're everywhere. I don't really see anything that's like in the aesthetic. What is up with like circus upside down? No more circuses of the animals. Oh man, that's sad. That's good work. Yeah, look at something like this and I wonder, is that a 3D rendered environment? You know, like obviously that lion has had a hat photoshopped on his head. That bear is photoshopped in and the lighting is corrected. And all that sort of thing. But is that building, that tent thing that they're in? Can you actually see this? Yeah. That tent thing that they're in, is that like a computer generated like 3D element? Because like the lighting is so flawless. You know, the lighting on the lion's not that good. And the lighting on the clown is not that good. But the lighting on this is so flawless. No. No, not that. I'm starting to like get, and this is gonna drive me off track, but I did want to say it. I'm starting to get like the when Banksy did Dismal World or whatever, Dismaland, right? Yeah, he did that installment at of like everything messed up, basically. It's basically like tore down Disneyland. All right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna grab this as a photo, and we're gonna use it for color reference, and that's gonna be the end of our mood boarding exercise here. There we go. Let me shrink these down a bit so I can get them all. And then actually, screw it. Let's just... whatever. It's fine. We'll just size these up so I get like 3 of them in there or something. Okay, that's fine. Alright, so mood board is done. We're going to save this as mood board. Clean freak. The next thing that we'll do when I come back to brief. Cool. And then in here, we're just going to write brief. And we'll do like this. Size them up a bit. And we'll do client. And size it down a little bit. Clean freak bar soap. Move this over a little. Clean freak bar soap. And we'll do like scope, packaging, logo, and identity. And I'm just shorthanding this right now. And because this is just like a practice project, I'm not going as hard as I would normally on a brief, because it's just for me and I know what happens in my own brain. But I'll set this up for our 3 flavors. So when we come back, we'll sort of go over like 3 flavors, scents, and ingredient sets and stuff like that, so that like we know what we're working on, and then yeah. All right. So see you guys in a few minutes. Yo, we're back. So far, we have mood boarded for this entire project, built out the whole shebang here, as far as um, sort of references for photography, textures, colors, packaging, product, what started the whole thing. We've sort of gotten to a point where I like to look at projects like these. It's a problem for me to tackle big projects like these, right? Because a lot of the time it becomes sort of a mountain that's really hard to climb. So what I like to do, especially in this case, because this is a packaging design, a full packaging design, ready for print, and set up to print as close to real world conditions as possible in three separate scents for a brand that I've totally made up. And they're going to need to be mocked up, rendered, and exist sort of in the universe as real looking as possible. And when you think about the scope of that sort of project, it's quite large. That's a lot to do. And so, especially as illustration heavy as I'm sort of vibing as far as like where this project is going to go. So what I sort of like to do, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? So I try to break these things down to little bite-sized pieces, and that's sort of why I'm doing this as a series on stream now. Is I think that it's worth looking at these things as like, okay, I've got some free time, I'm sitting around, I can work on a bite of this. I don't have to look at it as such a like overwhelming, oh my god, like what are we gonna do? I can just look at a bite of this. So right now what we're gonna go into is I'm sort of at my bandwidth as far as like what I feel like is going to be productive creative output here. So what I want to do is sort of like close out the stream, sort of like close out not just the stream, but sort of like this flow period of working. Is close this out by writing a brief, sort of reminding myself of how I feel right now, what I think is going to inform the project going forward, and just sort of like what the deliverables are, what the end game is here, like how they're going to be displayed, and that sort of thing. So I want to sort of walk you through that, especially on like an imaginary project like this, because I feel like not enough people do this sort of work, right? I feel like not enough people. I'm gonna pull my XD up so we can work and talk at the same time. I feel like not enough people do just practice work, just to sort of like stay loose, put something cool on social media, like market yourself a little bit, work on something that's not just like your 9 to 5, and explore some stuff that you like. So, I mean, like for instance, this right here is packaging that I did for a local coffee company. This was a job that I took when I had some free time. It was just purely like, I didn't make a bunch of money doing it. It was just purely something that I did for a local place here that just sort of like let me flex the muscle a little bit and draw and just sort of do something of my own choice because they had nothing. They needed a designer. They didn't have a big budget. They just sort of wanted somebody to come in and make some creative decisions and give them a vibe and a brand that people would sort of resonate with or remember. And so they sort of were able to give me free reign on that project, with some tweaks and variations here and there, but mostly free reign across the project. And it turned out very cool. It turned out very like fulfilling, and I'm personally proud of them, right? And that's some of the best work that's out there, right? I feel like we spend a lot of time stressing about what it's going to look like at the end, when really like the best eye for these sort of things are our own. So let's get into creating some project here. Okay, so we've already established sort of the layout of our brief. So let's go back to our mood board just for a second, just to sort of look again, get a good little mental picture and snapshot of what we're working on. And then going back over to our brief. Okay, so our client is Clean Freak Bar Soap. What do they do? We'll make this like italic. Bar soap and hygiene products centered and hygiene products for retail sales. And normally I would break this down a little more, primarily male audience inspired by circus, carnival freaks, and aesthetic. I always forget how to spell this. Aesthetic. Okay. Usually I would break down these demographics. You know, if I had actually like spoken to a client and had like a meeting and done like a whole bunch of sort of the interview process, and which maybe we'll talk about that on stream at some point. If I had done all that, then I would usually break this down more than just like, here's a quick little blurb about the company and what they do. I would break this down by like, okay, they found that 60% of their audience is male and under the age of 35. Or there's, you know, if there's data sets that they've provided me with, or little anecdotes about their customers, or the sort of events that they attend in order to sell things, that sort of stuff, then I would include all of that thing here in the brief, and we would sort of get much more granular and detailed, because ultimately this XD document right here is going to be the point of reference at every junction throughout this project. So if I get to a point where I'm sort of stuck and I don't know how to make a decision on illustration or verbiage or just little details, then I'm going to come back to the brief and use the brief to answer those questions. Because ultimately, in a real world scenario, the brief comes from the client, right? The brief either is literally written by the client sometimes, or it is something that you have like yanked out of the client by asking clarifying questions, trying to sort of break them down into really actionable vocabulary, because clients just don't communicate that way. They don't understand, like, for the most part. You know, sometimes you work with other designers or people who work in other creative fields, and they are able to put their vision into words a little bit more. But most of the time, you're working with people who don't do this on a daily basis, and so it's hard for them to convert what they are imagining in their mind and all of these data points and research and all that crap into words, like more visual words that somebody like me can take and press and form and shape and mold into a brand, a packaging, you know, whatever the deliverable is. So it's helpful to have as detailed of a brief as possible, but again, you can drown in this stuff. So I try to keep my briefs short, sweet, because this one is sort of like self-created. In practice, it's going to be a lot shorter than your standard client brief. I mean, you can see the amount of space that I normally allow for myself if I'm actually talking to a client, but in this case, we're going to be a little shorter. This is going to be our call out for our 3 ingredients. So packaging, logo, and identity. So let me add a little note here. Form fitted cardboard, cardstock, you know, whatever, packaging printed on all sides, plus, let's also do like a counter display. Plus a counter display. You know, you'll see like newer brands and honestly, like brands with large marketing budgets, they'll spend money on like special shelf pieces that hold their soaps and maybe have like a little marketing language on there or something like that. I'm thinking we could do something cool with this, like a tent or something like that. Um, so that'll be cool. Okay, so now let's switch back over to Safari. And we're gonna start, we're gonna look at like just soaps. So let's go to like Duke Cannon. And we'll also do like Mr. Squatch, soap, oh, Dr. Squatch, my bad. And I just want to get like a sense of, damn dude, this is such a market. $150 for a barrel of soap. So they've got like some strategic partnerships to like with Buffalo Trace whiskey, Bush beer. That's smart. I like this metal solid cologne box. Man, that is fire. So because Duke Cannon Supply, they have a very clear aesthetic, right? It's sort of that like throwback Americana propaganda, World War II utilitarian sort of vibe. I love that style. They really do like because it's so simple and it feels so handmade. It feels so like authentic. Okay, yeah. So Spartan Scrub. So this is a different direction, right? Like Dr. Squatch is kind of being more modern about it. They're a little more playful. See, this is the second time I've seen like a bourbon. So, okay, so, but we also need to tie them in because each one will be a character piece. So I need to look up like circus freaks. Is there like a Wikipedia? The most famous circus freaks. This will be fun. Oh god, man, do I really want to know? Like, these are so problematic, I feel like. Grady Stiles, the lobster boy. Oh, he's messed up hands. And feet. Ectrodactyly, a family trait going back to the 1840s, which caused their fingers and toes to fuse into claws. Jeez. Stiles was an abusive alcoholic who beat his wife. Yeah. You know, a lot of these guys, like... 1992, Stiles' wife Mary and her son Harry Glenn Newman, a human blockhead, hired sideshow performer Christopher Wyatt to kill him for $1,500. Okay, I cannot get into this. General Tom Thumb. He stopped growing when he was 6 months old? Damn, he's 2 feet 8.5 inches. Began touring with P.T. Barnum as General Tom Thumb at the age of 5. Amassing fame and fortune that later allowed him a lavish lifestyle and business partnership with Barnum. Died in 1983 of a stroke. Wow, he's 45. Dang. Four-legged lady Myrtle Corbin was a dipygus. She was born with a severe congenital deformity of conjoined twinning that caused her to have 2 separate pelvises and a smaller set of inner legs that she was unable to move. Fam. Golly. Wang the human unicorn. The lion face man. So I definitely want to do this one. This is obviously a very, very famous one. Thick, long hair, most likely due to a rare condition called hypertrichosis. His mother believed his appearance was caused her the fact that she witnessed his father get mauled by a lion when she was pregnant. She thought he was an abomination, giving him up at age 4 to a man named Settlemeyer, who began exhibiting him around Europe. Lionel came to the U.S. in 1901 and began appearing with the Barnum and Bailey Circus, then at Coney Island when he moved to New York. He retired in the late 1920s and moved back to Germany, where he died of a heart attack in 1932. Oh, so he's only 41. Man, a lot of these guys don't live, huh? Alright, so this is our first guy. Lionel the Lion Face Man. So we're gonna put him in this box in XD. So I'm sort of building out these just little visual cues. Nothing super important or anything like that, but just these little like visual cues so that I know what I'm looking at when I'm looking at it. Alright, so there's our first one, right? And because he's a lion, we sort of want to, let's go back to it's such a long list on Dr. Squatch that I feel like I have to steal from here. Cedar, citrus, like what speaks to like lion? You know what I mean? Like what is lion, like what says lion to you? In like soap sense. Eucalyptus, cold brew, cleanse. Bay rum, fresh falls, pine tar, Spartan scrub. I mean, I guess you can make it any flavor, right? As long as you come up with like a catchy little title for it. So like, really, I think the best way to go here, and I know I'm doing a lot. So like right now, I'm doing a lot of the legwork for each of these products. Normally the client would provide this, right? Like normally the client would say like, yeah, we've got 3 flavors, Lion Man, whatever, whatever, and whatever, right? So in this case, I'm going to do Lion Man. So I'm just going to call it I sort of want to call it like King of the Jungle or something like that, but it's too but that's not as circusy. Lump of coal. That's smart. Spice latte. The brilliance of somebody like Duke, Can, and Supply is just a branding exercise. Like they're basically just like making soaps, which are fairly like low cost items, and then they're just designing cool stuff and leveraging other brands and stuff like that to like just make something new and seasonal and current. Like this really is like a good direction if you're just like starting a little business. Uh, this sort of exemplifies the idea that like design can elevate your business far beyond having a good product, or like having good reviews, or setting up a really cool website or whatever. This company is literally just putting out slightly different soaps that are made in like a little mold or whatever, but they're constantly redoing their designs and doing like current seasonal designs that keep them relevant. I mean, so cool, so cool. They have a Budweiser soap. That's hilarious. And see, they know their audience. 24 bars of soap, Jesus. Alright, so let me go back a little bit because I was going to look at this campfire soap. What are the ingredients in this? It's just hickory. So let's Google something like lions live in Africa. So let's Google something in like African bar soap. It's like Etsy's a good place to look because most of that stuff comes maybe not from, but it's imported from Ghana. Raw African black soap. Product of Ghana. Cocoa pod ashes, plantain skins. Wow. African black soap, raw African black soap. So maybe this is not really what I'm looking for. Okay, like, yeah. African black soap, shea butter. So if I did like shea butter and like, and I think it would look cool with like a black. Yeah, I think it would look cool with like a black bar. African black bar soap, yeah. Ingredients, this is what I need. Sodium palmate. So like being a designer sort of leads us to weird places, right? Like we end up like on Ulta.com looking at soaps. I sort of like this green coconut and activated charcoal cleansing bar soap with white tea and lemon balm. That's sort of fire. Can I get a bigger picture of this? No, that's the 60 by 60. Okay. That's all I get, huh? Alright, that's fine. I'll just... So let me show you what I'm sort of building out in XD here with these new resources that we're pulling. So I've got a little blurb about our Lion Man. I've got just sort of like a vague idea of what our soap's gonna have ingredients-wise. And then some of the like just marketing copy and benefits that you want to include. You know, and obviously all that stuff will get reworded. I want to grab some things about the key ingredients in the soap itself. And like obviously this will all be reworded. I'll rewrite this, we'll probably change the ingredients a bit. But we are going to call this Lion Man. That's weird. The default kerning on Nuhas Grotesque is weird, or letting, I mean, is weird. Okay, so we're actually going to need more space on the brief than I originally imagined, which is cool, no problem. We'll just go back to the original size. And that way I can just like duplicate out this section and I can have one for each. Alright, so we'll just call this like white. It's there. We'll call this white. It's there. We'll call this white. It's there. And we'll call this white. It's there. And I'm going to give like all of these a little border action. Alright, cool. We'll just delete this one so I don't have to do that all over again. I hope you're looking at my XD. Yeah, you are. Okay. Alright, so now we need Carnival Guy. And Carnival Guy. Alright, so now we need to look back at the freaks again. Most famous circus freaks. Okay, Lion Man, I knew I was gonna... The Living Skeleton. Jeez, dude. The thing is, like, how faked could these be? Oh, sorry, you're not looking at this. How fake could these be? You know what I'm saying? Like, these people are... He had a completely normal childhood until he inexplicably began losing weight at the age of 12. He became a circus freak in 1865, performing in the sideshow as the Living Skeleton or the original Thin Man. P.T. Barnum hired him to perform at his American Museum. After the building burned down, Sprague toured the country. He died in Chicago of asphyxia. Sketch. She's like backwards. Congenital genu recurvatum, which caused her knees to bend backwards. Since he was likely born in the Bronx in 1901, he was born with a neurodevelopment disorder called microcephaly, leaving him with a small brain and skull and severe mental retardations. She performed in sideshow attractions, mini circus, began his film career with the Sideshow in 1928. Wow. Wow. Circus freak. Yeah, this is what I sort of wanted, just like a general, like, so P.T. Barnum. So, like, I feel like the most famous one is Tom Thumb, right? So you would do Tom Thumb. General Tom Thumb. He worked with General Tom Thumb, who was then 4 years of age, but was stated to be 11. See, a lot of this was just, like, bullshitting. Charles had stopped growing after the first 6 months of his life, at which point he was 25 inches tall and weighed 15 pounds. With heavy coaching and natural talent, the boy was taught to imitate people from Hercules to Napoleon. By 5, he was drinking wine, and by 7, smoking cigars for the public's amusement. During 1844 to 45, Barnum toured with Tom Thumb in Europe and met Queen Victoria, who was amused and saddened by the little man, and the event was a publicity coup. Barnum paid Stratton handsomely, about $150 a week. Wow. When Stratton retired, he lived in the most esteemed neighborhood of New York. He owned a yacht and dressed in the nicest clothing he could buy. Wow. The Living Aztecs, 3 dwarfs, a black mother, and 2 albino children. The Swiss bearded lady. Okay, so yeah. I think you do the bearded lady, right? And you do something that's like extra hair scrub or something like that. And then you do General Tom Thumb. Okay. Cool. That was easy. I thought it was going to be a lot harder decision, but that wasn't that bad. Okay, so we'll change this to Tom Thumb. Done. That's a little long, so I'll make this smaller. Cool. And bearded lady. Alright, so let me go back to that website that I was on before because General Tom Thumb, okay. Child service where I was born. Alright, we're gonna copy this image. He was an odd looking fella, man. It's really sad that these people sort of like got exploited, you know? This was just a time of like no medical understanding of like what was going on and just being shit people to like the disabled and just like people who were born with congenital defects, you know? Really is weird to think about the fact that like humans have just basically been shit to everybody on the earth for a while. Okay, so we've got like a little information about him. We've got like a little thing. Let's find like a little soap for him. What do we do? What sort of soap do you do for General Tom Thumb? Let's go to Dr. Squatch and see what they offer. So I sort of want to do like, yeah, Tom Thumb and then like a tea ingredient, maybe. So he's General Tom Thumb. And if we called it like Small but Mighty, something like that. Where was I at with that? Yeah, Ulta was a good source. Coconut and hibiscus, papaya. So like tea is obviously out there. Let's do what are those things called? Essential oils. Essential oils that start with a T. Yeah, list of all essential oils, A to Z. Perfect. No problem. That works great. Tangerine. Tom Thumb time. Perfect. Bar soap with time. Holy cow. Okay. Oh, we could also do just like Tom Thumb tar. That'll work. So let's do Tom Thumb tar. How's that sound? Do yeah. So let me just put like a little. We'll do like a little Tom Thumb tar. Let's put that like here or something. I'll move this down. And then we'll do like maybe throw pine extract. Yeah, so we'll just like take this, just like stick that on the board because I think that like all that sort of marketing copy and stuff like that will be very useful. So we'll just scroll down here. And can I send that to the back? Yeah, cool. Cool. I'll just delete all of this. Cool. And then I actually want to oh, you're looking at XD. Okay. All right. So cool. That takes care of Tom Thumb. This sort of gives us just like a framework, ingredients, stuff to know about them. Very easy. And we'll just like move this down here so it's more obvious what we got. Or actually, we'll because again, I want this to be as accessible as possible. I'm going to be coming back to this very often. And the brief is also something that sort of evolves over time. You know, like it will sort of grow as the project goes on. So if I feel like there is a certain texture or color or just like one little bit of inspiration that really vibes with one of these flavors, then I'll just sort of drop it in there, and then that way that's sort of a North Star that I've got that's sort of informing all of my decisions when I have questions throughout the design process. So again, these are all going to be things that we get to later in the project. We're just sort of laying the foundation right now and talking about things that are central to the workflow that's going to come later. And trust me, I know that this is not the most exciting part of the project. Like, I know that this is a lot of just sort of like assembly and me talking through my thoughts and just sort of procedural stuff. I totally get that, right? But I think that sort of thing is valuable also, to have that stuff done in front of you, because you sort of start to understand how designers think about what decisions they make and stuff like that. So, okay. So now we're going to Google our bearded lady. Guarantee you she has a Wikipedia. Notable women with beards? What? Okay. But I literally want the one that was in Barnum Circus. If that was even a thing. Maybe I've been gaslit. Story of Annie Jones. There we go. P.T. Barnum's bearded lady. How Annie Jones attained fame as P.T. Barnum's bearded lady, yet still died little more than a circus freak in the eyes of the business to chew her up. Yeah, that's probably true. I have no doubts. Capitalism has been very bad to basically everyone. And worse to others. Okay, so that's her. She was an American bearded woman born in Virginia. She toured with showman P.T. Barnum as a circus attraction. Whether the cause of her condition was hirsutism or an unrelated genetic condition that affects children of both sexes and continues into adult use is unknown. Many photographers, including Matthew Brady, took her portraits during her lifetime, which were widely distributed. And as an adult, Jones became the country's top bearded lady and acted as a spokesperson for Barnum's Freaks, a word she tried to abolish from the business. Jones married Richard Elliott in 1881, but divorced him in 1895 for her childhood sweetheart William Donovan, who died, leaving Jones' widow. In 1902, she died in Brooklyn of tuberculosis. Wow. She was born in Virginia. In 1865, she joined Barnum's exhibition as a child of only 9 months, and her parents received a $150 a week salary. She was billed as a new infant Esau. What is that? Elder son of Isaac in the Hebrew Bible. Oh God. At the age of 5, she had a mustache and sideburns, beard, and became well known as the Bearded Girl. Photographer Matthew Brady took Jones' portrait as a child in 1865, and a number of additional portraits were taken of Jones during her lifetime and were widely distributed. Manson, which may have been one of Barnum's publicity stunts in New York, phrenologists kidnapped Jones when she was a young child. Barnum and the police found her exhibited in a church fair. When the man claimed the child as his, the matter went to court. The judge had Jones separated from the others before it was her time to testify, and when the child was taken to the courtroom, she went straight to her parents. When she saw them, the judge declared the case closed. I don't even know what that means. So, this is her. Alright, so we're loading her in here. Bearded lady. So what would we call it? Yeah, so let's go back to was it Duke Cannon that had the hair care section? No, it was Dr. Squatch. So I think like because it's bearded lady, you just sort of vibe with the whole like hair care products type thing. Pine Tar hair care kits. Okay, so they're the same sort of flavors. You just say like natural shampoo and conditioner. But it's a bar, so that doesn't really work, right? So let's call it like yeah, let's call it like Bearded Lady Bourbon. Or let's do like a bourbon flavor with it. Flavor, bourbon scent. And then let's go to this liquid barrel bourbon on Dr. Squatch, and just like see what they say about it, because their marketing copy is pretty good. It's like informative. Oh, so they've got like an exfoliation guide. I sort of like that. Sort of like that. So we'll just like, whatever, grab their marketing copy again. I know I did this on the other one, but it's fine. Alright, and then I actually want to grab their like fine print here. Like we use natural ingredients in all of our products. I also want to do something that sort of like leans into like no animal testing, like that sort of thing. I think that's a very popular and important, obviously. Okay. Boom. So let me show you XD now. So we basically got our brief built out. I'm going to put a little title here that says like since additional products information, and then we'll grab that title and bring it down here, and we'll just do like deliverables. Oh my god, spelling. Deliverables. I need to grab a text box again. Okay, so we'll say like identity package, and that'll just be like logo, colors, character illustrations. Yeah, because we'll want those to stand alone. And fonts, right? And then we'll do packaging design. And this will be 3 cents. Full wrap box packaging. Full color printing. And we'll want to provide these as a PDF at 300 plus DPI. And we'll also want to provide the AI file. All right, cool. So now we can shrink down the brief. Now, normally on a client brief, we would have deadlines, checkpoints, what needs to be done along the way, like how we're going to get there, notes from the client, that sort of thing. But because we're just playing around, a lot of that stuff is not in here now, so no biggie. But now we've got a solid mood board, a solid brief. I think this is a good place to wrap for this evening, and gives us like a good jumping off point to the next step, which will be actually doing design work. So the next time we stream, I don't know when that's going to be, but sort of part 2 of this, I promise I won't work without you, will be laying out the actual templates themselves in Illustrator, doing some like product sizing and measuring and building of the actual print formats. We'll build those all out into artboards, visualize how they're going to fold, get all of our glue lines and die lines and all that sort of thing laid out. So a lot of the technical sort of foundational aspects, we'll get all that sort of laid out so that we're working in the right dimensions. Then we'll build out separate files for each side of the boxes to have realistic dimensions, not separate sizes, but separate artboards for each side of the boxes. And that way we'll have like realistic dimensions and a good perspective on where each one seams, how they're going to fit together, that sort of thing. And then we'll break out the drawing tablet, do some sketches, start to do a little bit of research on how to achieve the textures and the colors that we want to achieve, the overall look that we're trying to achieve. And then we'll sort of start to dive into drawing and fleshing these things out. I like to, one of my favorite artists in the world is Ed Sheeran, and he talks about the songwriting process in the sense of it's sort of like turning on an old faucet. You know, you go into an old sort of rundown house and you turn on the faucet, and the water that comes out is just gunk and just trash, right? When it starts to flow at first. But then over time, let it run for a minute, water starts to clear up. Let it run for 5 minutes and the water's clear. Let it run for 30 minutes and you've gotten all that gunk out of there. You can stick a glass under there and get a glass of water, right? And so it's very much just like spending the time with the bad ideas, letting all the shit run out of the faucet, and sort of landing on the better ideas and the things that are actually going to work. So that will be a lot of the next stream. Just turning on the faucet, finding all the shit, working a lot of things out by hand, like working with pencil and paper or on the drawing tablet, and just working through a bunch of crap. And then we'll probably cut there. I'm just sort of thinking this out in my own mind. We'll probably cut there, and then part 3 will be bringing that into Illustrator, vectorizing it, the long process. That'll be a pretty chunky stream, because it'll be a long process of vectorizing it, bringing it into Illustrator, and being working clean, structuring out our layers, color separations, all that sort of thing, and doing sort of a V1 of the design, because generally I'm going to try to work as close as possible to how I would with a client, which is we'll do a V1, which is like, hey, if you want to go to print, we're ready, but I know you're going to want changes, and then we'll cut there, and then stream 4, part 4, will be doing revisions, cleaning up, making any sort of changes that I sort of come up with over the course of time between those two streams, and finalizing, which will mean moving them from Vector and Illustrator to Photoshop and doing some sort of advanced texture work, shadowing, lighting, just some like additional touch-up, and then rasterizing them and outputting them at the proper print dimensions and resolution and all that sort of thing. And we'll package them up and get them ready. And then we'll cut, because that will take some time. We'll cut, and then hopefully Stream 5 and Part 5 as a closer will be mocking them up, getting them ready for presentation, building out the templates for showing off your work on social media, and getting everything ready to post and show and sort of leverage for our portfolio or personal brand or whatever. So that's the plan. Thank you guys for joining me. It's been really awesome. I'm glad that we got to put this together, and I'm really looking forward to how this is going to shake out. I won't lie to you, I'm still a little iffy, but it seems nice to have a roadmap laid out. By iffy, I just mean like I'm still a little unsure of what the final product is going to be, and that always seems to be a little concerning. But I'm feeling a little better now that we've sort of broken it down into pieces. I've got something on paper. We're really looking at like a mood board and a brief now, and I can have some direction. Like there's a North Star there. So I'm very excited about where we're going to end up. This is going to be great. So I will post everywhere announcing the second stream. Probably do that one during the day at some point, not in the middle of the night. But I'm glad that we sort of got some of the grunt work out of the way. And